Georgia Southern recently had their scrimmage, and it looked like it was pretty exciting. One thing that I'm going to take away from this is it looks like it's going to be a much more balanced offense. I walked away looking at this very surprised because we've been running an air raid offense for the past couple of years. But it shouldn't be a surprise because Ryan Appling, which is the new offensive coordinator, is not necessarily taking the same approach that Brian Ellis and did the last few years, where it was more drop back. When you look at this scrimmage, they basically ran for more yards than they did passing, which is something that we haven't seen in a very long time at Georgia Southern. So I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on what the offense may look like for the upcoming season. And I'm going to talk about a little bit of quarterback play as well, because I walked away kind of surprised that there's another name that's been thrown into the frail when it comes to quarterbacks, and somebody that we haven't talked about in a very long time. So let's just get into this. This is the First and Frame Rates channel, First and Frame Rates show. I am VF Baller. We talk about Georgia Southern and Atlanta Falcons football. The podcast is going to be starting back up later on this month on the Spotify, Apple, and YouTube podcasts. So if you want to listen, I'm going to try to do at least one episode a week. But based on how things flow, it may be an everyday occurrence where I'll put the podcast up on Spotify for you guys to listen and still put out the actual, regular video content as well. So thanks for rocking with me. I really appreciate you guys. I cannot thank you guys enough for, just being here throughout the entire time. All right, let's just get right into this. A name that we haven't talked about in a long time, which is David Dallas, is a kid that I was very high on when he was recruited. Unfortunately, he had a few injuries and he had surgery on his shoulder, and he was not able to actually perform even in small spurts as a starting. No, I ain't gonna stay starting, but a pure freshman and going into a sophomore year. Now he's a redshirt sophomore, and he's actually getting some reps. So I was actually surprised that this name was actually being called, because I haven't heard from his name in a long time, and actually his name is, a fairly, prominent name in, the state of Georgia. He was one of the top quarterbacks in the state of Georgia when he was coming out as a freshman. And what I'm looking at now is he's pretty much trying to go for the top spot. And he had a pretty good 50-yard run in the scrimmage. He also threw for a 9-yard touchdown pass. And I was big on Colton Fitzgerald, for the obvious reason that I think he's like the most tenured quarterback in Georgia Southern right now. I mean, he's been there the longest out of everybody else. But when you look at the talent, I mean, you can't deny it. You got JC French, you got, you got Dexter Williams. You have a lot of guys, even Tyler Budge, which is another guy that they're praising like crazy right now, true freshman for North Carolina. They got a lot of guys that can probably play the position right away. So I'm more the type that like to talk about guys who've been there the longest, usually get the first chance based on seniority. But look, if you got a guy like David Dallas that clearly has the talent. I mean, I've seen this high school tape. I've seen what he can do. I also seen JC French's tape, see what he can do. You also know what Dexter Williams can do based on his time in Indiana. This is the first time in a couple of years where Georgia Southern has a situation where the quarterback position is up for grabs. You saw how it was with Kyle Van Treese. You saw how it was with Davis Brin. Now you don't have that issue. You got like 4 guys who literally can go after this position and make things happen. So that's a really good thing. Offense ran for 252 yards, threw for 234. 1 turnover was in the game, and a forced fumble by Zach Blackwell, recovered by Elijah McDowell. So the defense is making strides as well. Want to see them step it up a lot when it comes to other competition. I want to see them do some great things on that end. So you had JP Michael. He had a receiving score. I'm sorry. Let me back up. OJ Arnold did not have a passing touch. He had a touchdown run. JP Michael had the passing touchdown from Dallas. I had to fix that right. So with that being said, JP Michael's another tight end that we're talking about. You got a couple of tight ends that's coming in that's going to be making some noise. But nevertheless, I want to talk about this offense in general. Are they really going to be making that much noise in the passing game? You had 6 touchdowns. You had some pretty good movement of the ball through the air. 234 is not bad, but you ran for 252. So I know 50 of the yards was basically of, David Dallas, but still, that's still 200 yards rushing, 234 yards passing. Is the offense going to be more balanced? I think under Brian Applin, I think we're going to be looking at a situation where the quarterback is not going to be able to, we're not going to have to do too much. And when you got running backs, like a Jalen White, you got a Jaysean Anderson, you got OJ Arnold. I mean, you got Elijah McDowell. Well, I'm sorry, he's a defensive back, not a running back. I'm sorry. But when you have all these other guys who are running backs that can actually run the ball pretty well, I mean, Terrence Gibbs is another one. So when you got all these guys that can run the ball, do you need to rely on throwing the ball so much? I mean, the last few years, that was kind of like was Georgia Southern football. We ran an air raid. I mean, you had guys throwing for 500 yards and doing all of this. But when you got good running backs like we do have, we may need to just sit back and be like, look, we can be more balanced. You got quarterbacks that can move in the pocket as well, so you might want to move them around because all three of the guys I got on the screen can move. They can run. So you got a lot of improvisers that are at the position, and we need to just go ahead and say, hey, look, this is the type of offense we may need to run. And I've been trying to advocate for this type of offense ever since Shai Werts was here. Shai Werts can move, and we just wanted to see him throw a little bit more. You put that two together, a guy that's mobile, plus you got good running backs, then you turn right back around and you got some decent receivers. Well, I ain't gonna say decent. We got some really good receivers too. The only thing we need to worry about is the offensive line holding up. You get the offensive line holding up, like we had the offensive line back in 2022. You get that type of offensive line. I mean, we're going to be rocking and rolling. I mean, we had a really good offensive line. Only gave up 6, maybe 5 sacks that year. I mean, you get a guy get an offensive line like that with a mobile quarterback. I mean, hey, sky's the limit. So I'm looking at this right here. 6 different touchdowns, 6 different players. You had 5 rushing touchdowns, 4 catching, receiving touchdowns. Look like it's going to be more balanced. I'm looking at this like, hey, this team look like they could be on their way to do some big things. Still a little worried about the Nevada game. Boise State is coming in as well. Ole Miss, I just want us to be competitive in that game. I think they're going to be like a top 10 team. I mean, if we can be competitive in that game, that just shows that we can compete with anybody. But that's going to be an uphill battle. But you never know. You never know how these games may play out. I mean, look, Texas A&M, look what happened to them against App State. Look what we did against Nebraska. You look at all these other things these other teams that can go down at any moment early in the season. So if this offense can get things balanced and keep the opposition off on their heels, anything is possible. So I'm really interested to see how this team is going to go going forward. I really want to see these guys make some strides. 6 and 7 the last 2 years. I would like to see us, and I'm trying to keep the bar low. My gut feeling is telling me that I want them to win at least 7 games, but the fan in me is like, look, we can win 10. Let's say, for instance, we lose the Boise, we lose the Ole Miss, and we win all the other games. That's what I like to see. But, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Y'all let me know what y'all think. What do y'all think about this team so far post-scrimmage? I think this is a very different team from the last couple of years. You got a quarterback, quarterback competition. You got these quarterbacks that are fairly different from the Kyle Van Treeses and the Davis Brins of the world. You got some athletic quarterbacks that can do some things. All 3 of these guys, even Tyler Budge that's not pictured here, all these guys can make something happen, not just with their arms. So it's going to be something that going to be a little different. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't think we had a quarterback situation like this in a while. Knowing that guys who can sling the football and throw the ball around and also can move in the pocket as well. It was either one or the other. Had a guy that was a gunslinger, or we had a guy who can run with his legs. We never had a balance like this in a very long time that I can remember. I mean, what is it? J-Bo Shaw probably was the last one. Y'all let me know. All right, y'all, I'm going to get up out of here. Y'all take it easy and enjoy the rest of y'all Sunday, and I'm out. Peace.